Hey guys, welcome to the Titanium Vault. I'm your host, RJ Bates III. And if you were randomly scrolling through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and hoping to see just an absolute banger of a podcast, you're at the right place, because today you've got me, the King Closer, and our guest, the sales goat, Eric Cline. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing amazing, man. I appreciate you having me on. Long time coming, bro.
Absolutely, dude. I'm not joking. I woke up today so fucking excited for today's episode. Like, dude, you and I, we've been at a couple of events together. We've chopped it up talking about sales. I give you a hard time because you got this long sales script, and listen, you're on the guy's podcast that literally has an episode that says, "Wow, shocking, your script sucks." That's one of my podcast episodes. So I'm excited to talk about talking to sellers today. I think it's one of those things that clearly people need because they talk to you and I about it all the time. So yeah. I want to go into that. But before we do, just give a brief introduction of who you are, what it is that you're doing inside of real estate investing.
Awesome. First and foremost, man, I appreciate you having me on here. I really do. Before I get into when I first came across you, RJ, I said, I'm either really going to like this guy or I'm not going to be able to fucking stand him. And when I saw you at that first event and we ended up having dinner together, I think we were kind of forced to sit next to each other. And I left that dinner and I called my wife and I'm like, this dude's legit. Like, I like him. I like everything about him. So before I get into me, I just want to let you know, man, appreciate you. I admire you, dude. I learned from you. So, and I appreciate you having me on here.
Appreciate that.
But to get into me, man, I'm 41 years old. Right now I reside in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's me, my wife, and I moved here from South Florida 2 years ago, and from 13 to 28, without giving a long drawn out explanation, addicted to drugs, very heavy drugs, and at 28 years old, stopped using drugs, started to live, and I got into sales at 28, and I've been doing solely over the phone telephone sales for almost 14 years now. I don't go do face-to-face stuff. I started behind a phone, and as long as I can do this, I will always do it over a telephone. Yep. My very first business and trying to be an entrepreneur, I grew a business from out of my bedroom with a stack of paper leads and a cordless telephone. My wife and I grew that business to doing over $33 million a year in gross sales. I almost exited the company for $54 million to sell 51%. Like, I've had a hell of a run in the last 13, almost 14 years. And I jumped into the wholesale space 2 years ago. It's actually been 26 months since I jumped into this model. And I say the model because it's lead generation and sales for me. Yeah. I don't really say I'm a real estate investor for the simple fact I've bought 10 rental properties and I didn't do a good job buying them. I actually don't want to be a landlord. So I'm selling off all the rental properties right now. Me and my partners are. And dude, I hit the ground kind of running in this space because I was so familiar with the model and I understood sales. Real estate, I'm not well versed in, so people don't come to me for real estate experience. But first 12 months in this space, did $2.6 million, ran it at a 60% profit margin, which, we netted around 1.5 our first 12 months. As we scale, that net is going down, obviously. Right. But listen, I got a full-blown operation. I've moved offices now twice just to scale the business, and I'm loving every minute of it, man.
Dude, so much to unpack here. A couple of things I will say. One, I knew I was going to like you because you and I are the only two people that I know that go up on stage with toys as our props. You've got the baseball bat. I've got the freaking wrestling belts, right?
I love it.
And second, the other thing I knew I was going to love about you is that you show you talking to sellers on your social media, just like I do. And I always say it. I'm like, what? Why are you standing in front of a camera preaching theory? Why don't you just pick up the phone and show me how to actually talk to a seller? So that's when I started doing it. When you started doing it, I was like, okay, this guy is legit. And the numbers speak for themselves. 60% profit margins, amazing. The amount that you did, what did you say? 2.6 in 12 months?
Yeah, first 12 months did 118 contracts and we funded 2.6 million. The average assignment fee was 22 grand our first 12 months.
22 grand. Hey, 22, baby. That's titanium. That look, you can't see it. 22.
I love it.
I love it. Okay, so let's dive in here. So first difference that you and I have, and I will unpack why we have some of the differences that we have. You have this 9-page script, 27-page script, something like that.
Yeah.
Why do you have such a large script?
Great question. So my last business, I had 100+ people on the telephones.
Okay.
And the only way, in my opinion, to get consistent results, RJ, with having 100 people on the phones and being able to track conversations is them doing what I want them to do. Put your own personality into it, but I got a process that works. From, like, you've heard me talk about my 5-step sales process.
Yep.
I just put it into a script where I'm not held hostage, RJ, to my team right now getting up and walking out, where if that were to happen today, I know by my sales process and my script, I can take just about anybody off of the streets that has a little bit of hustle in them, and I could put them into a seat and they could use my script to have an intelligent conversation. I don't need them to think. I just need them to read. So for so long, building my very first business, I was held hostage to my team, where if they got up and walked out, I panicked. Well, until I had an actual script, RJ, where, if someone enters our team today, RJ, after they go through 3 days of training and I put them on the phones, in their first 30 days, they need to produce 3 to 5 contracts for me. And I'm confident they can do that with my script.
Gotcha. So one of the reasons why I don't like scripts, and when I say I don't like scripts, it's not like I'm just telling people, hey, pick up the phone and best of luck.
I understand.
It's just not a PDF in front of them, right? And the reason why I didn't want that is because I don't want them to sound robotic when they're talking to a seller, because in my opinion, it is a very emotional experience for the vast majority of our sellers that we're dealing with, because this could be one of 3 or 4 real estate transactions that they have in their life where you're saying, hey, I'm going to pick Joe Blow out of the street and I expect you to do 3 or 5 this week, right? So how do you overcome them sounding robotic and they don't really understand the seller situation with a script in front of them?
Great question. So the script is scripted out, RJ, to my 5 steps, right? So step 1 is our intro. And what I realized real quick coming into this industry is everyone did sound the same. Everybody. I went on, I've listened to everybody. I went to events and they were all preaching the same thing. And I'm like, all right, I know what I got to do. I got to separate myself from the competition. Yep. So my script allows us to do that. Step 1 is an intro, setting very clear expectations of who they are, who you are, and what they're going to get out of the phone call. So in our intro, we say we're going to qualify every property. Okay. So by the end of the call, RJ, we may say, yes, your house is approved. Here's an offer, or no, it doesn't meet the approval, and here's the reason why. So I believe in the very beginning, we've already said something a little bit different than everybody else. Because you call these sellers and they think they got the hottest property on the block because their phone's blowing up.
Yep.
So we're letting them know there's a chance by the end of the call, we may not buy your property. Then we go into step 2, which is the fact find. And that is where you get to the personal level of them, right? I believe every conversation, every lead, the address may be different. The name on that address may be different and their circumstances may be different, but the structure of our phone call on our side, RJ, in my opinion, should always be the same. I don't care if they're a landlord or owner occupied, if they have a death in the family or they're going through a divorce. It's the same structure. You're just asking different questions.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, I'll interject and I'll let you keep going because I want to hit those 5 steps, right? But in the intro, not a whole lot of difference so far between our styles. You talk about you're going to qualify or pre-qualify to see whether or not you can buy their house or not, right?
Yes.
So for us, it's about understanding what their problem is and then seeing what solution we can offer them. Okay, so pretty similar.
Same.
And then in step 2, fact find. I think we don't move on to the fact find as aggressively as you do. I want to be more vague. So for our team, what we use there is do you want to sell? What's your asking price? We do that very early on to mirror what you said to differentiate ourselves from our competition.
Yes.
No one out there says your second question should be what's the price?
Nobody. No. So I completely I agree to disagree with you on that one.
Okay. So let's talk about that for a second because I love the fact that I do it live and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe he literally just said, hey, I was calling you about 123 Main Street. You still looking to sell? Yes. What's your asking price? People are like, whoa, I can't believe he just asked that right out the gate. You got to build rapport and overcome their objections and decide what their pain points are and all these different things that everyone in the industry is doing, right? So for us, it's about what's your asking price, okay? And then I move on to what can you tell me about the property? Tell me a little bit about the property. Something along those lines because that's where we fact find.
Yes.
Because I leave it very vague where I say, tell me a little bit about the property because then if they want to talk about the tenant or they want to talk about the condition or they want to talk about financial, that's where they tell us the motivation and they're steering the conversation where they need to steer the conversation. So why do you disagree with the price early on?
One, we're a complete stranger.
Okay.
Right? Called completely out of the blue. I'm sure you and I generate leads the same way. It's either coming from a cold call company or PPC. Yep. We treat each one a little bit different, but in my opinion, they're one and the same, right? Yep. So we have a cold call company call them out of the blue. They come to our office. Now we're reaching out to them. I believe, and this is my own perception on this, is if I ask them right out of the gates, what do you want? They're going to give me a fluff number. Like a number where I don't know if I'm the first call that day or I'm the 5th call that day.
Yep.
So what I want to try to do is I want to try to separate myself as much as I can from the last phone call to where they're like, all right, this guy's a little bit different than the rest of these, to where if I'm not asking price right away and I get on common ground, I act, I don't want to say act like I care, but I care about their situation and why are they not hung up on me, right? So why are they still on the phone with me to where right before I go into talking about the property, I just like you asked, what are you looking to get out of the property? Just ask it very softly. By that time, hopefully I've gained a little bit of their trust that I'm different. I'm just a little different. So if they give me a number that's a little bit more realistic than 30 seconds into the phone call, when I say, hey, this is Eric with XY Home Buyers, what are you looking to get out of your property? So it's one of those things. Does it work or does it not work? Listen, the way you pitch this works. It works. When I teach this, though, I put into consideration somebody that does not have the funds you have and I have, to where when they get a lead, for them to say 30 seconds in, what do you want for your house, RJ, and they hear a number that doesn't make sense to them, and they hang up on that lead. And it's like maybe they were shooting, maybe they were bluffing you.
Yeah.
So, like for me, I think about the newcomer in this industry that's skating on their last dollar, and they're trying to spin to win on a lead. If that makes sense, am I making sense to you?
No, absolutely. But listen, here's why this is why I wanted to have you on the podcast. Because I love this, because I don't think either one of us is right or wrong. I think if you take anything away from this podcast, I think it's this: whatever you choose to do it with confidence.
Yes.
So when I ask that, it's coming across as if this is the only way this conversation takes place. It's as if you've ever walked in to buy a car and the car salesman just automatically assumes the close. Suddenly you're getting the feeling like, holy shit, I am actually about to buy a car.
Yeah.
That's how I approach this, where it's like, okay, so you want to sell, right? Okay, so what's your price? 100,000. Okay, so tell me a little bit about the property while I'm seeing if I can do 100,000. We don't get off the phone, even if it is a fluff number, because I agree.
Good.
It is. Here's what I call that. I call that anchor and analyze. And we use anchor pricing. That is a term that is taught to real estate investors, where we are supposed to anchor low so then we can come up to where our actual MAO is. I use the term different, where we're in a boat together, us and the seller. One of us is throwing an anchor out. If they say 100,000, they automatically told me they're willing to accept 85 to 90.
Right. 100%. I agree with you.
So that's why I want to do that early on, because I'm learning that's where their bandwidth is. And from there on, the rest of the conversation revolves around that number, but really seeing let me understand, what is your motivation? So that's where we move into fact finding. So the 5 steps. So now you've done fact finding. Okay. What is the next step for you?
So step 2 is your fact find, but step 2 happens throughout the entire conversation.
Gotcha.
Right. So step 2, you continue through the 5 steps. Once you get done doing in our office, I try to put a time frame on every step. And step 1, you're looking at roughly 1.5 to 1.5 minutes. Step 2, you're looking at 5 to 7 minutes. Step 3 is going to be the pitch. That's where you talk about the house, RJ, where we always start outside of the property, then go inside the property. We try to ask questions that not everybody is asking, again, so we're not grouped together with the last phone call.
Yep.
So we're asking questions, and I'm sure you say stuff like this. Tell me about the neighborhood. A lot of renters, a lot of owners. Are you on a double yellow line? What's the speed limit out in the front? And a lot of people will ask me, well, Eric, what does that have to do with the house? And for me, it's just to be able to open up conversations and get the seller thinking about questions they've never been asked before. So we'll do the outside. We'll get the condition of the outside. I do not ask about the age of the roof, the AC, or the foundation, or upgrades. Like, I try to save that towards the end to where they're not like, fuck, this is just like the last guy that called me.
Yep.
We talk about the exterior. After we talk about the exterior, I always ask, if you were in our shoes, is there anything I haven't asked you that you would want to know? Because what I'm trying to do is have them put on the salesman hat and start selling me the house. So I want them to sell me the house. After they're done doing that, we jump inside the home. Again, we try to have them lead the conversation, RJ. It's open the front door, walk me through the entire home. And I will try to force them to walk through the property. If it's 1978, one thing we do not say in my office is the word upgrade. Like, we don't use the word upgrade. What does that mean? They're going to spend money and they're going to want to get that back. Yep. So if it's a 1978 home, we just simply say, as you're walking through the home, tell me what is not 1978 or original to the build. It's just another way of saying it without using the word upgrade. We get done talking about the interior of the home. And then I'll say again, is there anything I have not asked you about the inside of the home? If you were in our shoes that you would want to know. I'm just trying to have them put the salesman hat on. When you can get a seller to start selling you their home, that's a really good sign, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Listen, this is what's funny because the different methods, but we want the same result. So yes. That, again, this goes back to why do I ask the price early on and then open it up with a vague open-ended question like, what can you tell me about the property? The reason why is because I'm essentially asking them to tell me what is important to you about the property. And then also on the tail end of the price, it forces them to naturally become the seller. And here's the funny thing, dude. I say this all the time. For whatever reason, the real estate investing wholesaling industry is the only industry that I know that as buyers, we literally pay for sales education.
Yes.
Like, we're a buyer. What are you talking about? Like, actually be a buyer. Like, put yourself out there like what you're saying. If you were in my shoes, what would you ask about the property? Tell me about it. And that's what I tell them all the time. Like, sometimes when you get on the phone with mainly men, older men, they'll be like, what do you want to know about the property? I don't know, sir. I'm sitting here in Fort Worth, Texas, and you have a property in Raleigh, North Carolina that you want me to give you $100,000 for. Sell me on it. Tell me. I got $100,000 I'm willing to give you. And then they start opening up. So again, at the end of the day, you and I want the exact same result so far throughout this transaction, which is we just want them to sell us the property.
Yes.
That is the end goal. So now that we're at this point, we're through 3 steps. We've got 2 more steps. So what do we move on here?
And RJ, we're only on page 4 right now, mind you.
We got 66% left.
So we get, after we're done talking about the exterior and interior, what we do in our process is we're never the decision maker. Okay. Like my acquisitions, they're not the one coming up with the price. They're not the one coming up with the approval or the denial. So they always have to go back and get an approval or a denial. And throughout the whole phone call, we are acting as if every question is to see if the property qualifies. Once we get done talking about it, and we're going to go into now the tail end of step 3, is I'm going to put you on a quick hold and go back to my underwriters and see whether or not the property is approved. So all we do at that point, RJ, is we put them on a 3-minute hold to sit there and listen to what they are going to say with what the seller's going to say without knowing we're listening to them. Because there's a lot of questions we try to uncover. You know, is your spouse available? What's your real motivation? How much do you want? What's your time for? Like, so much stuff. And they may or may not give you the answer that you're looking for. Or they may be lying to you, right? All these sellers are liars. So we put them on a 3-minute hold, and then we come back and we say, you know what, Mrs. Seller, I don't have good news. I don't have bad news. My underwriters actually have 3 more questions they wanted me to ask you, and I can't believe I forgot about these. Gotcha. That's when I ask about the roof, the AC, the foundation, and the windows. They're all big ticket items. And
so this is another polar opposite thing between our sales process here. So for my guys, they are the decision maker.
Complete opposite, bro.
They straight up tell them I don't have to talk to anybody else. I tell my guy Garrett right here. I think he's 21 years old, maybe. Okay, I tell him, you are not coming to me. You're not coming to Cassie. You are the decision maker when you're talking to the seller. There is no one else involved. Why? Because I want to instill the fact that you are talking to the person that is going to make the decision whether or not we're buying your house today. Now, you have the process of the underwriter. Why? Why do you think that is the better route when you're talking to a seller?
So it takes the lowball offers and the numbers out of them putting the responsibility on you.
Gotcha.
The first offer, listen, it wasn't me that made the offer. I'm just the messenger, right? I'm actually, in the way we can spin our pitch is I'm actually on your side. It's me and you against our underwriters. So they're in the back. They're number crunchers, Mrs. Seller. Like there's no human element in it for them. My job is to bring that human element into the back office to try and tell them exactly why you need what you need. But at the end of the day, I'm on your side to get you more money.
Makes sense. So for us, we want to take the human element out of it. And if we have to offer a lot, we then follow that up with education. So this is where we become this is where we take over and we start doing the majority of talking in the conversation, where we say, remember, you told me that everything in the house is 1978.
Yes.
Right. You haven't done anything since 1978. So just based off the square footage, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's 1,500 square feet. You know that's going to cost $40,000+ for us to get it up to full market value. You know that, right?
Right.
And we get them to start saying, yes, I do know it's going to cost $40,000. And so for that point, and this might be where we start going different directions, because at that point, we literally use the phrase, it's nothing but a mathematical equation. So it's not somebody else, it's math, ma'am.
Right.
You understand math. So if your house is worth $100,000 fixed up, we have to do $40,000. You know, we have to make money, right? I have kids. This is where we use the funny phrases like, I got kids to feed, you know, they got to make money. So that's where we start going. So for you, you're separating that lower offer that might offend them and bring emotion by saying it's somebody else.
Yeah. And for the reason the way I structure my pitch, RJ, is we come back, we put them on one hold, 3 minutes, and then we ask a few more questions when we come back, and then we put them on another 3-minute hold, right? And then when we come back and we make our first offer, if for us to raise our number, for one of my closers to say, listen, this is all they've authorized me to spend, I got to go back to my underwriters, see if I can get an approval to raise my number. They put them back on a hold, which is so powerful because on that hold during a negotiation, RJ, the only thing the seller's thinking about is numbers. So when you put them on hold and they don't think you're listening, the only thing they're going to talk about is numbers. So like, however you do this, your model is super scalable. You've had a ton of success. My model, super scalable. I've had a ton of success. I say if you're going to pick one, pick with it and just go all in with it.
Oh, well, facts. And the other thing is it needs to be based around your personality, which is funny because I think you and I have pretty similar personalities.
We do.
But I will say the difference here is that there's a few little differences here. You're blaming it on the underwriter. I'm blaming it on math.
Right.
See, there's still somebody else to be pissed off at. Ma'am, it's not me.
It's math.
Just me punching numbers into a calculator. And like, you can't argue with this, right? Because otherwise, if I pay you what you're asking me, I'm going to lose money. And at that point in time, it's how can they argue?
Yeah.
Like, it's either they have to just say the words, I'm going to find a moron that will buy it to lose money, or I agree, you have now explained it to me. So again, going back to the whole core reason why you created what you created was to differentiate yourself.
Yes. So
same thing. I want to be different than you. Me and you are competitors on a day-to-day basis.
I agree.
So I don't want to do what you do. I want you to put them on hold while I got a guy on the phone saying, I am the decision maker. Fuck that guy that has to go talk to his underwriter. I ain't got no underwriter. I got a calculator, ma'am.
I love it, baby.
You see, that's again, this is where at the end of the day, what's made us successful is not the script or anything like that. It really comes down to our killer instinct on we're going to close. No matter how we got to the end, we're going to get down to the point where, okay, so now are we at step 4? Have we done step 4 yet?
Yeah, we're getting ready to make the offer.
Okay,
step 4. Step
5?
Step 4 is the offer, RJ.
Oh my God, we were still in step 3.
We still got 2 steps, bro.
All right. So, all right, let's go to step 4. What's now?
Step 4 is the offer. That's where you come back on. I got great news. First one, they've approved for me all week. Then you're going to give them a virtual withdrawal number. I want you to write this number down. And they're writing down VW12345. It's a number that we have here within our office. And the way the offer is going to come, Mr. Seller, you go over all the benefits, explain why this is going to be a good offer, and we always say right before we give the offer, every single time, this offer came in a little bit higher than I was anticipating. Every time before we give our offer, it's a must. They say that it came in a little bit higher than I was anticipating, and then they give the offer. So more likely than not, they're going to say, I want more money. So now we're in the offer. We always treat the first time they say, I want more money as a complaint. Everyone complains they want more money. So when they say it once, complaint, say it twice, it's an objection. So the second time where it's like, listen, no, I want more money, they put them on hold. Now we're in negotiation, which is your offer. So once we get to the number that makes sense, then we move to the close, and that would be step 5, RJ, and that is buttoning up the deal, typing up the contract. We always use the words offer letter until they sign it. Once they sign it, we start using the word contract.
Love it.
Like you have a legally binding contract we just signed, we button the deal up, we put a bow on it, we set clear expectations of how it's going to go over the next 30 to 45 days. And then we part ways.
Love it. I saw you talk about this the other day. So, because we're on the contract, so we'll go back to the negotiations and stuff like that. But you talked about one of the things that just blew people's mind at a mastermind you were at the other day was how you handle earnest money inside of your contract, right?
Yeah.
Or the inspection period.
Inspection period.
Inspection period. Talk about what you have inside of your contract that triggers the inspection period.
We have to get approved pictures by our company. So whether the seller takes it or we send one of our photographers that we have in all of our local markets, we'll send the photographer out there. We get our pictures back. That gets triggered with an email to the seller that our inspection period finally started.
I love that. That is beautiful. I will say the way that we navigate that is if we have a 30-day contract, there is a 30-day inspection period.
Get it?
There is a little bit of different. Now, every now and then there is an objection over that as to why would you need, are you going to back out the day of closing? We don't do that to people, and we tell them that, like, that's there because, believe it or not, there's a lot of sellers that just don't give us access for 3 weeks. We can't get in. There's a crazy brother tenant that you didn't tell me about until we showed up, and they're running around the front yard waving a gun at my photographer. I mean, all of the crazy shit that happens on these deals. So we just tell them, like, we're going to go see the property as soon as we possibly can.
Right.
We're going to update you along the way. We stay communicated with them, especially with our transaction coordinator. So, but I love that because that's another way to just make sure that you're buying yourself time. And in reality, you can't do shit until you have the pictures.
I agree.
You need that. So, all right, let's go back to negotiations here because this is where I think early on you said, I don't want newbies asking the price because if the price is too high, then they're just going to get off the phone and they think it's a bad lead. Okay, so now here we are. We've taken time. We've fact find. We did all of these things. Now we make our offer. Do you ever ask them for a price?
No, 100% we do.
Okay, so you've asked them for a price.
RJ, you're asking in the first, say 30 seconds, 1 minute. Usually, 5-6 minutes into a call, RJ, we're asking them, what would you like for the property? We're just not doing it right off the bat. That's it.
Okay, so here you are. Now we're at the negotiation. So say we make an offer of $50,000, and one is we're at 2, so now it's an objection, right?
Yeah,
they say they want more money, so now it's an actual objection.
Yep.
How are you teaching people to overcome the objections here when it comes to whatever it is? And majority of the time, it's going to come down to money. I mean, that's
nine out of 10
offer price, it's money. So let's talk about that objection. How are we overcoming it? If say there is a substantial difference, where I would say if it's $25,000 or more dollars in the majority of wholesale deals, because I'm going to assume majority of our wholesale deals are going to be in that $100,000 to $250,000 price point, right? So $25,000 is a big difference. How are you overcoming those objections?
So we always go down to, I agree with you when it comes to numbers, right? We then go, listen, you've said that the roof needs redone, the windows are original, the inside's original. Have you ever looked into redoing a home like this? Do you have a clue what it costs? So we're asking them, do you understand what it would take to get your home to, the same one on 123 Main Street that we're looking at? Like, we see a property selling substantially more than yours,
right?
But have you seen the property? Have you seen inside it? Have you seen those pictures? If not, let's pull up the internet real quick so you can see that. Like, it's what they don't know, they don't know. So we try to get them to look at the property of what it looks like and then ask them, do you know what it would take to get the property to that condition? And then it's going back to the underwriters. That's where we try to educate as much as we can. But at the end of the day, if they've never rehabbed a house, they're either going to believe or not believe the number that you're telling them, right? Before I rehabbed a house, RJ, I did not know what it cost to rehab a house. I really did not. And then it's always, let me put you on a hold, and then we'll go back to the underwriters. And I always say negotiate in inches, not miles, because you never know really what's going to make somebody tick. So instead of giving away $15,000 and keeping 10 grand in the deal, like, give them $2,500, $5,000. See what it does.
So here is one of the things that I love about talking to sellers and getting a number out of them. That to me is the most important part of the process, because the moment that you get that number, you will see on almost all of my lives where I'm talking to a seller, it is like pulling fucking teeth to get a number out of me.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask them again. Okay, so now that we've talked about this and what you were talking about, they don't know any numbers. So for examples that I would use on that is, well, you have original appliances. So you know that we're going to have to buy appliances. So you know the cost of a refrigerator, and I use that a lot. The cost of a refrigerator is, $2,500, and the cost of an oven is $1,200, and the cost of a stove is another $800. So just by there, I mean, we're at $5,000. And you've been at Home Depot, the cost of tile is, $3 to $4 a square foot. So you just start doing the math here, and you start doing by square footages and price per square foot. And suddenly they start realizing they almost like shut you up. Like, all right, I get it. So what's the big number? It's
right.
50,000 is what I'm looking at, right?
Yeah.
And you start explaining it that way. But again, I'm not going to give the offer. I'm going to say, so knowing that the number is 50,000, because we agreed on that, what do you think is a fair price for me to pay for the property at this point? Well, what's the best thing you can do for me? Well, what if I cover your commissions? There's no realtor commissions. I cover the closing costs. What's the best price you could do for me?
You keep putting it back on them.
Over and over again, bro. I mean, this is where, I'll mirror your time length. I think majority of our calls are going to be less than 10 minutes.
Really?
No, you've got sellers on hold for 12 minutes. I mean, so yeah, I mean, the majority of our calls are super fast like that. But this is where I will take time is by not giving an offer, by just asking over and over again. I want to talk about a thing that we talk about all the time, because this is important when it comes to negotiations, is rapport. Okay.
Yes.
So people always talk about rapport. I've got another video out that says building rapport is irrelevant. Okay. So I believe that rapport should be built through being the most educated person on the phone. By being the expert in the transaction, it builds the trust with the seller.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, what do you believe is important about rapport, and how are you doing that inside of the 5 steps?
Yep.
Is it a part of one of those steps? And what are you doing to build that rapport with the seller?
Yeah, great question. So I believe rapport done the right way gives you the answers you need to close the deal.
Yes.
Right? It's not football, the weather, and shit like that. That's not rapport to me. Right. So rapport being asking very specific questions. If you're speaking to the husband and he's married, you're speaking to a guy, he's married, the wife's not available. There's very specific questions I'm going to ask that I know are going to come up at the end. So I'm going to try and knock down as many obstacles as I can. I got a guy, he's been married, he's owned a property for 15 years. Are you the only one that owns a property? I see you got your wife on here. Yeah. How long have you and the missus been married? I'm going to bring her into a conversation without her even here. How long have you been married? 23 years. Jesus, that's amazing. I'm going on 13. How does someone get to 23 years? And I giggle. Your delivery is everything. Yep. Do I really give a shit how long this guy's been married? The answer is no. But I know if someone's been married 23 years, he already knows what his wife is thinking. I'm going to ask a question like, and I'm not going to ask them back to back to back. I'm going to break these up and ask them at the right time. I want to know, when's the last time you and your wife talked about selling the house? I want to know when was the last time, and who's the driving factor here? So when I get to the very end and this guy says, I need to speak to my wife, and I'm like, John, you told me you talked to your wife 3 days ago. She's the one that brought it up. You said she's the one that wants to move out of the house. You don't need to talk to your wife. You guys have already made the decision. You're selling the home. You cannot use those lines if you don't have that information.
Right.
It's not pressure. It's using their information against them.
So I got to tell you a story. So Closers Olympics.
Yeah.
Final round. Okay. We get the contract I got to win the belt back here was in North Carolina. So the seller, she bought the property at auction, sight unseen, never seen the property. Okay. This is I'm cold calling to win the fucking Closers Olympics. Okay. So this is straight cold call. Just like I've said. Are you looking to sell this property? I am. Okay. How much are you looking to get for it? She tells me some high number. What can you tell me about the property? I bought it at auction, sight unseen. Pretty sure it's in pretty rough shape. It needs everything. I had plans on what I was going to do, but I just need to move on from it and just get my money back out. Oh, you need to get your money back out. How much did you pay for it? I paid a much lower number than what the asking price is. So now I know this is my window of opportunity. Her asking price and what she paid for, okay?
Yep.
So I'm like, listen, I think I can be your solution. This is what I can offer you. Essentially what she paid for it. You can be done with it. You can move on with your life. She says, okay, send me over a contract. I'll take a look at it. I'll let my husband see it. I said, hold on, is your husband available? Yes. I mean, he's here, but he's watching NFL.
Go get him.
Oh, he's watching an NFL game. Guess what husband during his NFL game definitely doesn't want to do? Fucking read my contract.
Right.
But he does want his money back on the shithole box that he bought in North Carolina. So I'm like, can we get him on the phone right now? Because I have $70,000 that I'm getting rid of today. Someone is taking my $70,000. So it's either you and I can go enjoy the rest of my day with my kids.
Right.
Or I have to keep calling and someone's going to get my $70,000. She says, okay, send me over the contract. She says, hold on 1 second. She forgets to mute me. And she's like, he sent over his contract. It's 2 pages. It says he's going to give us the money. What do you want to look at it? And he said, no, leave me alone. Sign the contract. And she's like, okay, it's signed. And it was over.
I love it.
So going back to your point, though, it's all done. Our end objectives here are the same. It just depends on your personality and what you can replicate over and over and over again. And I think that's what's admirable about you and your script here is that you've been able to build it out where obviously it's successful for your team to do over and over and over again.
Yep.
That's the most important takeaway of this is it really doesn't matter necessarily what words you're saying as long as you're getting the same end result with the sellers.
Yeah, man. I agree. We can agree to disagree, brother. We are both right.
No, we are, because the results, that's what matters. And honestly, when you and I talked the first time we met at the event, it was funny because you said the same thing. You were like, dude, I'm a sales expert. I'm not a real estate expert. And it was funny because I very much appreciated the fact that you said that because I think real estate is simple, but understanding what your strength is here in this game and how you can replicate that over and over is extremely important. And I think it's important for anyone that's listening to this. Like if you're struggling with what me and Eric are talking about, then you need to pick a system. Whether it's Eric's or mine or Steve Trang's or whoever, pick it and hire people to come in that do not struggle with this. Because there are a lot of people out there that do not struggle following these processes.
No, not at all.
It's very simple. So that being said, I have a couple more things and then I'll let you go back to your busy life here. Who has the best beard in real estate? Is it you? Is it me? Or is it Max Maxwell?
Well, it depends on what style you're going for, RJ.
Are you saying you have a different style because yours isn't, inches in length here?
Yeah, I mean, we got different styles, bro. Like, you got a great, well-manicured beard, brother. I do as well. Max does as well. I think I can't be the one to say that. Someone else, we're gonna have to put us all three out there on social media and let the judge let the crowd be the judge.
I love it. I'll have to come to North Carolina to you boys. So
I love it.
All right. The last thing I want to ask you is because I love logos, I love branding. How did Sales Goat come about? And what is Sales Goat? Because I see it. So obviously this is your education. Is that what this is?
Yeah. So the bat came about with my son 2 years ago was Babe Ruth for freaking Halloween, and he brought his bat into my office, and I started carrying it around, and there was a few pictures with me having the bat, so that organically happened.
I love it.
The goat was. So I went to a few masterminds and events, and I was like, this industry lacks something, and it's a sales process. I'm like, if there's one gaping hole that I could fill and I could fill quick, It's me claiming myself to be the guy.
Right.
But the GOAT, GOAT, is for the greatest onboarding acquisition training.
Oh, bro, that is so good.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, bro, no, that is epic. I did not know that.
So it's the sales GOAT, GOAT standing for greatest onboarding acquisition training.
Dude, that is branding right there, baby. I love it. I didn't know that. I just was asking because I fucking love the logo and I love branding, but that makes it even better.
It's pretty sexy, bro.
It is. It is. Okay, so a couple of things here. Eric and I went heavy into the sales process today because I felt it necessary. If you want to know more about Eric's story and his background, where I was introduced to Eric prior to meeting him, I listened to his podcast episode he did with Quentin Flores on Uncut with Q. Would you say that was probably the one where you went most in depth with your story?
Yeah, man. We went pretty deep into it. Yeah.
And I listened to that. That was one of Q. I think it was Q's first ever podcast.
It was his very first one.
It was, and I listened to it, and honestly, man, I was moved by your story. Normally, this podcast is all about showcasing people's stories, but I had to respect Eric's time. I mean, we're at 51 minutes, so normally this is like half of one of his calls with a seller, as far as time goes. But I didn't want to also add another hour on top of it with him telling his story. So I recommend go check out that podcast so you can learn more about Eric's story. Because, dude, you are an incredible human being. Like I want you to know that, man. You really are. Just getting to know you, like hanging out with you a couple of times, like you actually do what you say you do. And that's awesome to see. Last thing I want to talk about is our speeches at Growth, Q's events. I literally had a moment where I was standing in the back of the room listening to Eric because Eric spoke first at the event. Cassie and I spoke second. So Eric's up on stage and he's fucking doing his thing. If you've never seen Eric speak, I mean, you have spoken multiple times on Grant Cardone's 10X stage. Is that correct?
Yeah.
This dude is a powerful fucking speaker, okay? So I'm jazzed up because we get to go after him. And I'm listening to him. And what you were teaching was literally what we were about to do to the audience. Like you were saying, this is what you need to do to motivated sellers. Yeah. And I'm going, holy shit, this is how aligned we are because it's what I'm about to do to them. So I don't know if you heard it or not, but I was in the back of the room and you said something and I was like, woo! Yeah, baby. I was so fucking jazzed. I don't care if anybody else in that room got anything from your speech. I got something from your speech. So real quick, what I want to talk about is what you were going over. So just a quick synopsis of that, where essentially what I did to the audience and what you were saying we need to do to the sellers. Do you remember your speech in San Antonio?
I don't, because I say something different every time. I don't think about before I go on stage.
So essentially what it was is kind of identifying what the problem was first, and then through the rest of the speech, giving the solution. And you were saying, hey, this is what you need to be doing with your sellers. And that's where your 5 steps come in.
Yes.
And it was funny because that was the moment where I was like, I've got to get Eric on the podcast because our process is aligned in the end result. It's just different steps that we take to get there. And that was a moment, man. And on top of that, the amount of respect that you showed me and Cassie, you got off a stage, you went and you sat on the first fucking seat right in front of me and you listened to our entire speech, man. it's an honor to get to know you and call you my friend, man. So
I agree, brother.
Wanted to say that to you. So
thank you so much, man. I look forward to getting to know you and your wife way more than I do now. I think you and I are probably way more alike than we even think. Yeah. And the beautiful thing is without having this model that we're both in, you're in Texas, I'm in North Carolina. A year ago, we were strangers, probably looking at each other like, who is this tool? Right. And that's the one thing you always do is don't judge a book by its cover, because I'm sure RJ said things about me without knowing me, and I said things about RJ without knowing him. And the first time you get us in a room together, I'm like, holy shit, this is a cool dude that I literally could call a friend. So I apologize for any thoughts I may have had about you, bro, because it's crazy. We all like to judge people. We do. Yeah. Whether we think we're judgmental or not, as soon as you see somebody, within seconds, you are judging them. And my first initial judgment on you was 100% wrong, inaccurate, because I think you're a stand-up guy. I believe everything that you, what you stand for. And I look forward to doing stuff with you in the future, bro.
Last question. Most importantly, are you coming for my belt in the Closers Olympics?
I'm not, bro.
Oh, man.
No.
I'm not.
That's all you, bro.
I wanted Eric Cline to be in the competition, but he won't do it. That's okay. I understand why certain people wouldn't want to do it. I honestly, there have been multiple times where I have said I might not want to do it because it is not what we do on a day-to-day basis.
No, I don't stand. I don't have anything against. I get the concept of it. I really do. It's not my message.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that because also it's you staying true to what you're doing, and what you're doing is winning. And that's what matters. So I appreciate that answer. All right. Last thing, and we're done. This episode was a fucking banger. All right. This right here was what Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania was supposed to be. All right. But it wasn't. All right. So for podcasts, it was. So for that, I need 5-star review. Okay. Now, if you didn't like today's episode, it means 1, you're not a closer. And so I apologize. That sucks for you. 2, that's okay. There are 2 podcasts that Eric's been on previously that openly accept less than 5 stars. And that's the Real Estate Disruptors hosted by Steve Trang and the Max Maxwell podcast. You could go leave them a 3-star review because I only accept 5 stars again. So leave me 5-star review. Eric, honor to have you on, brother. Appreciate your time.
You're the man, bro. I appreciate you, RJ.